There was a sport in ancient Greece where the only rule was this: fight until one of you cannot get up. Nobody stops it. Nobody checks if you're breathing. You just keep going until somebody dies, or somebody quits. Most people quit. Some people didn't. There is a real, documented case of a man who won an Olympic event after he was already dead. His opponent tapped out in pain a few seconds after the fatal blow landed. The judges crowned the corpse champion. That actually happened. And the crowd cheered. This is the Olympic Games. Not the version with flags and anthems. The original one. The one your body still remembers, even if your mind has never heard the story. Right now, somewhere in your life, you are competing for something. A job. A relationship. A spot on a team, a leaderboard, a follower count. And some part of your nervous system treats every single one of those moments like it actually matters in a life or death way. You feel your heart rate spike before a presentation that cannot physically harm you. You feel your stomach drop when someone else gets the promotion. You feel something close to grief when you lose at a video game against a stranger you will never meet. None of that is an overreaction. It's an inheritance. Because competition used to be the most dangerous thing a human being could do. Today we're going back nearly 3,000 years, to the original Olympic Games, the ones the modern version is loosely based on. And I want you to understand something before we start: this wasn't sport the way you think of sport. This was something closer to a controlled, ritualized form of human sacrifice that everyone agreed to call a competition. The Greeks didn't separate athletics from religion. They didn't separate winning from worthiness. And they absolutely did not separate competition from death. By the end of this video, you're going to understand exactly why your body still reacts to losing like it's a survival event. Because for the people who built this tradition, it was. Here's something almost nobody tells you about the origin of organized athletic competition. It didn't start as celebration. It started as grief. The earliest Greek athletic contests that historians can trace weren't held to honor the living. They were held at funerals. When an important warrior or king died, his community held competitions in his name: races, wrestling, boxing, javelin throws, as a way of honoring the dead and, just as importantly, working through the cooperation crisis that follows the death of a powerful leader. Homer describes exactly this in the Iliad. Funeral games for Patroclus, held by Achilles, his closest companion. Think about what that means. The activity you now associate with stadiums, medals, and national pride began as a ritual to process death. The Greeks believed that physical excellence, displayed in front of the gods, honored the deceased and proved that life, and strength, continued after loss. Competition wasn't entertainment. It was a form of mourning with your body instead of your voice. You were not just trying to win. You were trying to prove, in front of gods and grieving men, that death had not weakened the living. The Olympic Games themselves, according to Greek tradition, formally began around 776 BCE at Olympia, a sacred site dedicated to Zeus. But the religious weight never left. Every 4 years, for over 1,000 years, Greek city-states that were frequently at war with each other agreed to stop fighting. A sacred truce. The Ekakeria. You could murder your neighbor's army the month before and the month after. But during the games, you traveled unarmed to Olympia, because violating that truce wasn't a political crime. It was an offense against Zeus himself. And then, once you arrived, you were handed a different kind of violence entirely. One the gods didn't just permit. They demanded it as worship. Let's talk about pankration. If you've never heard the name, your body has still inherited the instinct it created. Pankration was a combat event combining boxing, wrestling, and submission grappling, with almost no rules. You could strike, choke, break joints, and grapple on the ground. There were exactly two things you couldn't do: bite and gouge eyes. Everything else was legal, including techniques that would end most modern fights in a hospital. The match ended one way: someone raised a finger to signal surrender, or someone stopped moving. There was no time limit. There was no judge stopping the fight for safety. There was no concept of tapping out early to protect your long-term health, because nobody in that arena was thinking about next year. They were thinking about right now, in front of thousands of spectators and the watching eyes of Zeus, in a culture where losing wasn't just disappointing. It was a public referendum on whether the gods favored you at all. And then there's the story of Eurytion of Phigalia. In 564 BCE, during the pankration final, Eurytion's opponent had him in a fatal chokehold from behind. Eurytion was losing consciousness. He was, by every account, already dying. But in his last seconds of awareness, with the last strength his body had, he twisted his opponent's ankle hard enough to break it. The pain was so extreme that his opponent tapped out in submission. At the exact moment Eurytion's body went limp and stopped breathing. The judges examined the situation and made their ruling: Eurytion's opponent had surrendered first. Eurytion was declared the winner. He was already dead. They crowned his corpse with the olive wreath. They paraded his body through the crowd as Olympic champion. His statue was later erected at Olympia, and people traveled specifically to see it, not as a cautionary tale, but as the ultimate symbol of what true competitive spirit was supposed to look like. You did not quit. Even death was not a good enough reason to quit. Here is where this stops being ancient history and starts being about you. Because the specific terror of public failure, the one that makes your hands sweat before a presentation, the one that makes losing feel like more than just losing, didn't appear randomly in your nervous system. It was shaped by thousands of years of exactly this. Competitions where the entire community watched. Where losing wasn't just embarrassing. Where, for a very long stretch of human history, losing in front of your tribe genuinely could determine whether you ate that winter, whether you mated, whether you survived. Modern psychologists call this the sociometer. Your built-in gauge for social standing. When you fail in front of people now, in a meeting, on a stage, in a game with friends watching, your amygdala does not know the difference between 2026 and 776 BCE. It fires the exact same threat signal. Elevated heart rate. Cortisol flooding your bloodstream. The specific dropping sensation in your stomach that has nothing to do with the actual, logical stakes of the situation in front of you. Your body is still bracing for Olympia. For the crowd. For the judges. For the verdict on whether you were worthy. And in ancient Greece, that verdict had teeth, because losing badly enough, often enough, didn't just cost you a medal. It could cost your entire city its honor. Athletes who competed represented their home city-states, and a victory at Olympia could mean free meals for life, exemption from taxes, statues built in your image while you were still alive to see them. A loss carried the opposite weight entirely. Made you matter to anyone. This is why the Greeks didn't see a contradiction in literally dying during competition. Worth, in their world, was not separate from physical excellence proven in front of witnesses. If your body failed at the highest moment that mattered, in some deep cultural sense, you had already lost the thing that made your life valuable to begin with. That belief system is gone. The instinct it built into the human nervous system is not. Boxing in ancient Greece, pygmachia, was its own particular horror, and archaeology gives us proof you can hold in your hand. There were no gloves in the modern sense. Fighters wrapped their hands and forearms in leather straps called hamantes, designed not to protect the wearer, but to make every strike landed on an opponent's skull more devastating. Later versions added metal studs. Statues of Greek boxers from this era show something archaeologists call boxer's ear, and broken, reset, broken again noses sculpted in permanent detail. This wasn't artistic exaggeration. This was documentation. The Greeks sculpted their boxers exactly as they looked, because the damage itself was considered a mark of honor, not something to soften or hide. Fights had no rounds, no time limits, and no scoring system based on points. You fought until one man could no longer continue. That's it. That was the entire rule structure. Melanchomas of Korea became legendary not for knocking opponents out, but reportedly for his ability to dodge for hours without throwing a single punch, exhausting opponents into surrender, because the alternative to winning eventually wasn't simply losing. It was sustained, repeated trauma to the skull, delivered by a man with leather-wrapped fists and absolutely no obligation to stop. There was no doctor checking if you could safely continue. There was only the crowd, watching to see if you would. We now understand, through modern neuroscience, exactly what repeated blows like that do to the human brain. Chronic traumatic encephalopathy, memory loss, personality changes, early death. The Greeks didn't have that vocabulary. They had something else instead, the belief that a body willing to absorb that much damage without quitting was proof of something almost divine. You weren't just fighting a man. You were proving, blow by blow, that your spirit was stronger than your pain receptors. And the crowd needed to see you prove it in real time, with no possibility of faking it, because pain is the one thing that's almost impossible to perform convincingly when it's real. Now I want to tell you about the death that, in some ways, defines the entire modern Olympic movement, even though almost nobody knows the real version. 490 BCE. The Battle of Marathon. The Athenians had just won an impossible military victory against a vastly larger Persian invasion force. But victory wasn't safety yet. The Persian fleet was still sailing, possibly toward an undefended Athens. A runner named Phidippides was given one task: run roughly 25 miles back to Athens, as fast as a human body could move, and deliver the news before panic, or the Persians, arrived first. He had likely already run significant distances in the days prior, delivering urgent military messages between city-states. His body, by any modern medical standard, should not have been asked to do this. He ran anyway. According to the ancient account, Phidippides reached the assembly in Athens, gasped out the words Nike. Nike! Victory! Victory! And then collapsed, and died, right there, in front of the people he had just saved. His heart had simply run out of road before his legs did. He gave them the only thing that mattered, and the cost was every single thing he had left. This is the story the modern marathon race is named after and built upon, 26.2 miles, deliberately echoing that legendary run. Every single person who has ever crossed a marathon finish line, every charity 5K, every fun run with a medal at the end, is participating in a tradition that began with a man who ran himself to death to deliver good news. We turned his death into a celebration of endurance. We didn't soften the story to make it more comfortable. We built an entire athletic tradition on top of it, exactly as it happened. That tells you something important about what this culture actually valued. Not safety. Not moderation. The willingness to give everything, completely, with no reservation held back for your own survival, in service of something larger than yourself. And somewhere in you, that value is still running. It's why leaving it all on the field is a compliment. It's why we admire the athlete who plays through injury more than the one who sits out to protect themselves. It's why quitting, even when quitting is the rational, healthy choice, still feels like a small death to something ancient inside your chest. Here's the part of this story that should genuinely unsettle you. The Greeks did not see any of this as cruelty. They saw it as the most honest test of human worth available. Strip away comfort, strip away safety nets, strip away the option to quietly walk away, and what's left is the truth of who you actually are. You inherited that belief system whether you wanted it or not. It's why rejection still physically hurts you, thousands of years after the tribal stakes that made rejection lethal disappeared. It's why losing at something meaningless to your actual survival can still trigger a full-body stress response identical to genuine danger. It's why some part of you, right now, measures your worth by how you perform in front of other people, even when you consciously know that's not a fair or accurate measurement of anything. Your nervous system is still partially running on Olympic rules. Compete. Prove yourself. Do not quit, even when quitting is wise. Winning equals worth. The Greeks just had the honesty to admit, out loud, in marble and blood, exactly what that belief system actually costs when you take it all the way to its logical end. The prize for winning at the original Olympic Games was not money. It was not a medal. It was a wreath made of olive branches, cut from a sacred tree at Olympia, worth nothing in any material sense at all. And men died for it anyway. Not because the wreath mattered. Because what it represented mattered more than their own survival. Worthiness. Proof. The right to be remembered as someone who did not quit. Every time you push yourself past the point that's good for you to win something that, deep down, you know isn't actually worth the cost, that's not weakness. That's not a flaw in your character. That's 3,000 years of ancestors who believed, with their entire bodies, that quitting was the only true form of death, and who built a civilization that still runs quietly underneath your skin today. So tell me, and I want a real answer, not the comfortable one. Is there something in your life right now you're still competing for, long after it stopped being worth what it's costing you? The arena never really closed. It just stopped having walls.